This is Grafted Together with ACSI Chief Ministry Officer Jerry Nelson.
How can a Christian school measure its progress in achieving its stated goals, objectives, and desired student outcomes? In the business world, success is often measured by net revenue, which is represented by the income generated from selling various products or services, exceeding production costs. Similarly, in sports, success is determined by the team's win-loss record and the number of championships won, including individual achievements by players compared to their contemporaries. In the academic realm, the success of a school system is gauged by factors such as graduation rates, national test scores, and the number of college acceptances. These achievements are quantified and tracked using statistical metrics and ultimately communicated to stakeholders to showcase the school's accomplishments. Now, while these metrics are commendable, Christian schools, as outlined in their mission and vision statements, aspire to produce faithful followers of Jesus Christ in various forms. Now, we acknowledge that different schools may approach this goal in different ways. However, the question arises, how can a Christian school ensure it's on track to producing faithful followers of Jesus Christ? How can we assess whether our students are being shaped in Christ? How can we evaluate the effectiveness of our strategies, programming, and messaging? And ultimately, can spiritual formation be objectively measured? Hi, my name is Jerry Nelson, and this is Grafted Together. And I want to remind you that spiritual formation matters. It's what makes Christian education Christian education. If you are not a part of the growing spiritual formation network, you are missing out. And we had the privilege of having Dr. Annie Gallagher kick off our training on the spiritual formation journey map, leading us in understanding expected student outcomes. So coming up on November 18th, make sure you sign up. We have Dr. Tim Van Solen from the Center for the Advancement of Christian Education at Dordt University, who will walk us through the next phase of our spiritual formation journey map in the area of assessment. So to register for the spiritual formation network meeting, you can sign up at acsi.org/convene, and that is acsi.org/convene, and look for the spiritual formation network sign up. So get registered today to connect with spiritual formation ambassadors from around the world and receive regular updates on upcoming training opportunities and network opportunities. Again, that's acsi.org/convene. So joining me today to discuss the topic of assessing spiritual formation is Parrish Shewey. He is the campus pastor at Kingsway Christian School located in Vancouver, Washington. And for the last 5 years, he has ministered to a school population of over 1,100 students. And over the last 3 years, he has spearheaded an effort to develop a tool for Kingsway to gauge the success of their spiritual formation efforts. Welcome, Paris, and thanks for joining the podcast.
Hey, Jerry. It's an honor to be here, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, you are a product of someone. The reason you're on this podcast is because you got connected with the Spiritual Formation Network. And, this is an amazing story of really what we're trying to create and our belief system that really God has already provided all the resources, within the body of Christ. And so we consider it our job at ACSI is, man, let's find those resources and let's connect those with the greater network and the people who just love Jesus and just really trying to honor him in every way. But hey, man, I love for people to get to know you, hear your story, how you came to Christ, which is an amazing story of just connectivity, and how you made your way to Kingsway.
Yeah. We had a great time on the phone last week after that spiritual formation cohort call. And it was just cool to see that there are other people around the nation who are going towards the same thing. Because I think so often you can feel like you're on an island. Not many people have the job of spiritual director or spiritual life or campus life or campus pastor. So thank you, ACSI, for putting that together, that network together. I met Jesus when I was 20 years old. So my whole life I grew up playing baseball, and that was my God. And it got me a scholarship to Washington State University. Go Cougs. And it was there that my life radically changed because I had two teammates. They just lived differently. When me and the 30 other guys were talking one way, those two guys weren't. When we were skipping class or coming in late to the locker room, they were never skipping class. They were always, in the weight room, training room, first ones to practice, last ones to leave, and they just did their thing. I think when they were in the locker room, they had muscles in places I didn't even know you could have muscles. And so just everything about those guys was like attractive, like how can they do that? Especially in like a college world where, a lot of darkness is glorified. And so, I call it the crash and burn. I just woke up one morning thinking I'm failing in the classroom and on the field for the first time in my life. And I don't know what else to do but to ask Shay and Tommy. That's what their names were. I got to ask Shay and Tommy what's different about them. And so I went up to them after a practice and I just asked them like, guys, I'm struggling and I don't know what to do, but you guys got something I don't, and what is it? And I think it's First or Second Peter tells us to be ready for the answer for the hope that's within us. And those guys were like, well, it's Jesus. And then you should come meet this guy. And they introduced me to the director of Athletes in Action, part of Campus Crusade at Washington State University. And then he led me to the Lord in October of '09. So I think we're coming up on 16 years, I think,
Wow.
of being a
Wow.
being a believer. So after college, I graduated with a degree in management and operations, went in the business world, and then had my first son. And after that, I'm driving like hours a day in traffic between Portland and Vancouver, and I'm getting the text message, videos of walking, crawling, talking, all that stuff, and I'm missing out on life at home. And that was when it really started to get real. Like, Lord, how can I want to be a dad more than I want to be this businessman. And he led me to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So, big time name in the parachurch world, but FCA was a huge step for me, leaving a corporate America and getting into ministry and raising support and doing all that. But it just made sense because I got saved through the influence of two of my teammates, on a baseball team. And then, once I got the job with FCA and I'm calling Shay and Tommy, just letting them know kind of what the path has been like. And they go, "Oh man, that's so cool. We had FCA when we were in middle school and high school." And I started crying because I just saw this you could see the whole process play out. And so now I get to be in a spot where I get to meet Shay's and Tommy's in middle school and high school. So to one day when they go to college, hopefully still playing sports, they're going to run into a knucklehead just like me, and that story is going to continue to play out. And so when I joined staff with FCA, I also started coaching baseball at Kingsway. So this spring will be season number 8
Mhm.
at Kingsway baseball. And um, how I got to the campus pastor role was our athletic director actually left right after COVID in November of 20. And we're connected, when you're on staff with FCA, you're connected with a lot of Christian athletic directors and coaches. And so I contacted the superintendent at the school and asked him if he wanted any help with the search. And he said yes. And then over the course of praying for that role, I felt like I needed to apply for it. So I applied and went through that process of interviews. And lo and behold, we get to the summer of I think 2022, and he comes back to me and asks, "Hey, if we have this new role, we've never done this before, but it's going to be like a middle school athletic director, assistant athletic director, and a or part-time campus pastor. What would you say about that?" And I said yes. And the roles evolved, as we've gotten into it. But what you focus on grows, and uh, it's led to some pretty incredible results, in the spiritual life of the students at Kingsway.
Yeah, there's so much there, obviously, just to even point out the fact that those, Tommy and Shay were being formed early in Christ,
Yeah,
and it's obvious that they were being formed to be ambassadors, and
for sure.
their commitment to Jesus Christ, spilled over into that realm of influence that they had, which in the case was the baseball field and the baseball locker room, and that led
Yep.
to your salvation. I I
Yep.
I just feel like man, that's why we do what we do. You know,
Yeah,
we just really never know the kids that we're whose lives that we're touching right now, how they're going to impact other people wherever God sends them to draw them to Jesus
right.
Christ.
The sad, just thinking about it, we had one of our baseball players passed away this summer.
Mm,
He drowned in a river out here, and his service was last Saturday. And when I think I had this idea that baseball was really important and that my job as a coach was really important. But when I was sitting in that room and you're listening to the family talk about how important baseball was to, our athlete that passed away, and then you look at all the kids that were there because they played on teams with him. It was pretty sobering and also really motivating to say, like, I'm going to double down this year because sports, it tends to be like the most important piece in, kids or families' lives. And why not use that platform to let your light shine? So it was a big deal for me growing up. It was a big deal for my family. It was a big deal for that family and a lot of the teammates. So I'm excited to, get after it to a greater degree this year for sure.
I was having a conversation with a former athletic director recently, and our conversation just really kind of centered on the 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 amount of influence that uh, coaches, period, you know,
Yeah.
have, on their players, and
Mm,
it's a realm of I think it's an area where we know that shaping is some type of formation is going on, but
right.
it's an area that oftentimes it feels like there's this dualistic approach. Either it's almost like, well, well, we have to win. Well, if we win, then we can't be, just super spiritual with our wedding.
Can't just sit in a circle and hold hands and kumbaya, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it's really cool just kind of listening to your story, how God put you in this unique position where you were,
Mm,
and I want to call it straddle the fence, but you were in a sense kind of living in two worlds. And I mean, you still are because you're still coaching baseball, you're the campus
mhm.
pastor, but the same way in which you were shaped, the same way in which you were drawn into Christ, you're living in that world right now, in that
Right.
unique world and often difficult world of, all right, how do I properly integrate my faith into what God is, this sphere of influence, which, in your case, is baseball, but also as the campus pastor. I just think that's just so
Yeah.
cool what God has done in your life.
Yeah. Praise God, man. It's been a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
we want to focus a little bit more on the role of campus pastor, and
Yeah.
really the area that really intrigued myself and Doug, who you got connected with,
Hmm. Right.
who's leading our spiritual formation network, is you've developed a tool at Kingsway to help measure this elusive thing of spiritual formation. And
Right.
again, we were on the call together with Annie, and she made it clear. It's like, the scriptures say, well, who can know the heart? So can we truly measure, spiritual formation? But I want to talk about this tool. What is this tool that you've developed? What's the purpose of the tool? And I want to get into how did you guys go about developing the tool?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a great point that Annie brought up. I don't think any tool is going to ever like comprehensively capture, any the data that I think we're seeking. When I was on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, one of the questions we asked ourselves constantly was, how are we quantifying the quality of
Mhm.
life change? And so we started tinkering with different things, different questions to ask, our kids in the huddle or our coaches. Are we measuring how many coaches are in a 3D huddle? Are we measuring the number of kids at a school? How many coaches are a part of that huddle? So we just started tinkering with a lot of those metrics. And then when I got to Kingsway, one of the questions was like, where are we at even spiritually. We're not a covenant school. So you don't have to sign a statement of faith to be a student or a family at Kingsway, presents some pretty cool evangelistic opportunities and witnessing opportunities for all the staff and even the other kids that are Christians. So it took a year just to kind of like get the lay of the land. And then I just started to kind of fumble through some basic questions like, when did you make a decision for Jesus? And then the responses were before this school year, during this school year, or I have not. And then, do you attend church regularly? And I set the bar pretty, for me, I felt like it was pretty low. It was like, do you attend church 50% of the time? Like if there were 4 weeks in a month, do you attend church 2 out of the 4 weeks? Or church or youth group? And then what church or youth group do you attend? And then have you been baptized? And the last question was, do you have at least one trusted staff member or adult on campus? Just to kind of gauge how well of a job we're doing interacting and creating relationships with our students. And do they feel that? We might think we're doing a good job as the adults on campus, but do the kids actually actually believe that? So we initially sent that survey out to our middle schoolers that first year. Pretty shocking results, I think. And then the following year to our middle school and high school. So it was about 480-ish students that first year. And the results were kind of, it was the same. We saw it was high 80s to 90% of our student body said that they had made a decision for Jesus. 70-ish% of them said they attended church 2 out of the 4 opportunities a month. And the really big number that we decided to hone in on, or I decided to hone in on, was less than 45% said that they had been baptized. And so I saw this gap of like, okay, 90% of our student body says they believe in Jesus, 45% of them say they've been baptized. So I think this is a gap that we can work on closing. So now that we knew the data, just a really simple Google Forms survey. Now that we knew the data, I came back to our administration and executive team and said, "Hey, I don't know, I don't know if we've ever done this before. This is only my third school year here, or second school year here. Can we baptize kids on campus? Have we ever done that before?" It's just like fact finding, and that got us into a really incredible conversation. It was cool for me because I'd never been in a room like that where you had so many different opinions about something as foundational to our beliefs as baptism. And so that was lively and fun. And I think the end result, it was huge for our school because it's routinely, like, the baptism service is routinely one of the kids' top three's favorite events of a school year. So we can talk about that process, but it started with just figuring out where we're at.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure our listeners I can already hear our listeners like, baptizing in schools,
Yeah.
like, that's the responsibility of the local church. The
Right.
local school should not be doing baptisms. And so of course I definitely want to dive into that,
For
but
sure.
I got some questions that like how your survey tool is really simple. It's 4 questions.
Yep. Simple.
And you said that you stumbled into these. How many did you go through a series of questions? How did you arrive at these 4 questions? Or was it just kind of throwing stuff against the wall to see what worked? What was the
Yeah, I
process
think,
for development?
well, yeah, I think originally the list was probably 8 to 10 questions long. And then I went to our principals in the middle school and high school, and I said, "Hey, what do you guys think about asking our student body, these questions?" And there was, the first question was like, "Well, what's the point of the survey?" And I didn't start there. I just kind of said, like, we should figure out where our kids are at. So then we had a conversation about what's the actual point of the survey, and what would be the main, like, 1 to 2, 3 things that we want to get from that. And so from there, that's how we chopped it down to those 4 basic questions. The other thought was, the youth these days are kind of weird with, like, oh, I don't know if I want my name being on that thing or not. And so we actually had the questions. We could work these questions. It could be an anonymous survey, or we could have their school email address tied to it. So we wanted to pick questions that didn't require them to give up their identity necessarily. So could these questions be in an anonymous survey? So that was another one of the criteria. So yeah, we landed on those four. And the bummer part about having an anonymous survey is if you do have kids that say they've made a decision for Jesus during the school year, you're not actually going to capture who
Yeah.
that individual is. So we've had to do we've just had to do a better job as the adults on campus to really make sure we're communicating with the kids during chapel and those like Bible study or break times to find out who those people are.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we got to those four questions. And I think they're pretty primary, essential data points to know. And from that, like one of the follow-up questions on do you attend church regularly? We actually ask, we have a fill in the blank section, like what church, if you feel comfortable, what church do you attend, church or youth group? And so then from there, we realized that and we polled just our middle school and high school.
Mhm.
So between our middle school and high school students, it's about 480. We have 67 churches represented
Mhm.
in that student population. So then obviously there's a lot of different denominational beliefs and ideas about all sorts of things, and I think baptism was one of them that we're going to talk about and that we honed in on. And so just in our executive team, we had 4 or 5 different churches represented. So some people were like, yes, get them, let's go. Other people are like, we're not the church. We don't need to be doing stuff like this. And so like I said, it was lively. And, a couple people even asked me like, man, Paris, this sounds like a lot of work. Are you sure you even want to do that? And I thought that's why I'm here. I'm here to do this hard work so that uh isn't that why you hired me for stuff like this? So it was a no-brainer for me, no matter how hard the work it was.
When do you do the survey? Because I'm assuming that this is what springtime that you're doing because you obviously asking if they got saved or
Mhm.
during the year.
Yeah, so we send the survey out in September, at end of September every year,
Oh,
and then at the end of May every school year.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so we do poll them twice.
gotcha.
And the reality is like in our first few chapels of a year, like we've got chapel today, we had chapel last week, and we had a kind of like a fun day Friday, sort of half day little chapel on the first Friday of the school year. So there have already been kids who have made decisions for Christ in those 3 chapels, and so we do. Uh, we really do want to preach the gospel at Kingsway, knowing that we are not a covenant school. We're giving kids opportunities every week to hear and respond. So we capture that info at the end of September and then at the end of May, middle end of May, just before all the seniors and high school kind of goes into finals week.
Now, once you capture that information in September, do you make adjustments to your your chapel plan, or do you plan your chapel accordingly, or is it a
Mhm.
combination of you have an idea of what you want to do going into the new school year, and then you maybe make small adjustments? How do you work that?
Yeah, so we come in with a plan every year. So one of the mission of Kingsway is to point people to Jesus.
Mhm.
And we do that we have 4 Ds. We say discover God's love, discern God's truth, dream God's call, and do God's will. And
Mhm.
so all of our chapels kind of flow into that discover, discern, dream, do
Mhm.
framework. So this year, our chapel theme, we typically try to set the chapel theme in the summer, myself and the principals. And then we actually have a high school campus pastor who focuses just on the high school. So I'll be like high level directing, and then he's got high school, and then I'll have the rest of the learning center, elementary and middle school. So those four individuals, we'll get together and plan. So this school year, we're going through the upper room discourse. So John 13 through 17.
Yeah.
I've been really surprised at how Bible illiterate this next generation is. And that's not a knock on any of our Bible teachers, because I know for a fact they are reading and they're teaching them how to read the Bible and what is the Bible and going through the Old and New Testaments and everything. But I just feel like one of my responsibilities is to, like, let's read the Bible and talk about the Bible.
Yeah.
So there isn't a ton of adjusting that happens based off the survey. I don't think we're necessarily capturing worldview, um, like worldview data from that survey. This is really, uh, I mean, the main point is like, can we aggregate all this data to just get us some actionable things? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I guess the biggest adjustment that we've seen was, okay, here's this big gap between uh, kids who say they follow Jesus and kids who have been baptized. What if we did a baptism service for a chapel once a year? And so then, the process for that was really like like, how are we going to communicate to the churches? How are we going to make sure we honor the church? How are we going to make sure we honor the families? Are we baptizing any Kingsway student? Are we just baptizing high school, or baptizing middle school and high school? Those were a lot of the questions that we worked through. And I think so first step was, everyone was actually open to the idea. We didn't have any of our administration or executive team say, no, we're not, we're not doing that.
Mm.
Which, kudos to everybody on staff. I think they saw the data too and thought we
Mm.
probably could do or should do something about that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just before you move on to kind
Yeah.
of walking through the process, I just want to kind of highlight, I think it's cool what you said, and I love this, quantifying the quality of life change. I love that,
Mhm.
man. That is such a quotable, man.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, man.
whoever came up with that, man, that's some good alliteration there.
It's gold. Yeah.
What I really like is that you basically took a snapshot of where the school was, and
Correct.
you basically says, hey, listen, here's a picture of where we are. This picture it's just a snapshot. It doesn't tell the whole story of who we are, but it gives us an idea of where we are. It's kind of like a spy plane taking a picture of
Yep.
a particular area. It reveals something. It
Yeah.
doesn't reveal everything, and that everyone
Correct.
was able to look at that together and see, oh yeah, we do see where the need is. And I just think,
Mhm.
just from the importance of taking some type of snapshot, some type of picture, it gives everyone kind of a common picture, if you will, of
Yeah.
where it is, and that way we can have a meaningful discussion around
Mhm.
something that is quantified rather than, well, this is how I feel about this. Even if
Yeah.
you have a feeling,
Yeah.
this is something that's objective. So
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy how our brains work sometimes, where we think we're doing a really great job of certain things. And then, we see this data and we're like, wow, okay, maybe not.
yeah,
And even 70% of our student body saying that they attend church, the question popped in my head too, like, man, we should poll our staff too, because we signed this handbook. We're still in the works with that one, but and it's not like a shame thing. Like, let's just get a picture, like you said, take a snapshot of where we're at, and then from there we can make different decisions that actually are going to move the needle in the direction we want it to go.
right.
Yeah.
So, in your assessment, you guys decided to drill down on baptism.
Hmm.
You've gone through the process of revealing this and showing the data to your administrative staff.
Hmm.
There's agreement on, hey, let's move forward. But again, there's
Yeah.
the hurdle of, all right, so how are we going to do this now? We want to
Yeah.
get here, but how are we going to do this? So
Yeah.
kind of explain the process of, all right, a kid raises their hand and says, hey, I want to be baptized.
Hmm.
What's the process that Kingsway goes through,
Yeah.
recognizing that there are folks who are like, man, this is the responsibility of the local church. We got
Correct.
all of these denominational beliefs
Hmm.
about, I mean, not a whole lot, but there's
Yeah.
still
I mean, it's surprising to think you have 67 churches represented, by our student body. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of, and there's Mormon, there's Catholic, and then there's every denomination of Protestant, at our school. And so, it's a melting pot,
yeah,
so, and everybody falls on a different spot with, especially with something like baptism. So the first thing that our superintendent said was, I need you. So it was myself and our high school campus pastor. He said, I need you two to give me a write-up on what you think the Bible says about baptism, just so we're all going to be on the same page with that thing first. So we created a front and back, a one-page front and back document. And we submitted that to our Bible department for them to look through. And then he and I each took it to our pastors, because we go to different churches. So we took it to our pastors, had them run through it and sign off. And then we submitted that to our admin team. And then once they approved that, then we started to walk through, okay, what does it look like if a kid, like the question you said, if a kid does raise their hand, what's our process going to be, and how are you guys going to make sure you're going to honor the family and the church, because we're not just going to randomly start dunking kids. So the first step is, we always make sure that we communicate that if you're raising your hand you're not raising your hand to get baptized at Kingsway. You're raising your hand to saying that you want to go to the class and get more information so that you can make the best decision possible for you. So we instituted a baptism class. So we have what's called WIN time on campus, of what I need, WIN. So that's like a 30-minute chunk every Wednesday and Friday that our students have to either go to a class that they need help on, retake a test, finish up, a project, read if they wanted to, run around the track if they need to. But 3 or 4 weeks before our baptism service, we have the baptism class. So every kid that raises their hand, we capture their name and grade, and then they have to answer yes to the question, can Pastor Paris or Pastor Levi call your family and your church, and then what church do you attend? So they got to fill out some info on that. And so they attend the class, and then myself and our high school campus pastor, we will call the family. We will call the church if we know the individual at the church, and just say, hey, so-and-so raised their hand to say they wanted to get baptized. They attended our baptism class just to hear more information about what the Bible says about baptism. And we just want to make sure that this is a family decision. So it's firstly on the family. We want these kids to honor their father and mother. So is the family okay with them getting baptized at the school? If not, okay, it's on, like, your kid wants to get baptized, you guys make the best decision for your family. And we've seen, there's probably a dozen or so kids that have decided to get baptized, in the family hot tub, or at the lake house, or at the river that's really special for them, or at their church. But if the family's like, oh, this is so cool, we had no idea, we'd love for them to get baptized at Kingsway with all their friends, then the question is, okay, can I call your, the youth pastor, or your senior pastor? We talk to the church and just let them know about the whole situation. We haven't really had any pushback from a church saying, well, that's not your job to do. And I think as everyone really realizes, like, it is a family decision, and this is for the student, right? So we also ask the kid, every kid that goes to the class, like, who do they want to baptize them? So we've had teachers, moms and dads, grandparents, youth pastors, their coach from a sports team. We've had another student, we've had all different kinds of people baptize our students at Kingsway. And I really feel like, if you look at Acts 8, 9, and 10, you see like 3 really big baptisms early on in the early church. And there isn't a formula. You have Philip and the Ethiopian on the side of the road. You have Ananias and Paul, or Saul, probably a little more official than on the side of the road, right? And then you have Peter and Cornelius in Cornelius's house. Yeah. And so you have like Gentiles, it's probably in a synagogue, it's outside of the road, it's at someone's house. So we're like, the Bible just says get baptized, in a lot of ways. There's not a formula that we got to run through. So as long as the person has been baptized, who is doing the baptizing, then we allow them to baptize a student at Kingsway.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of pivot to just the effects that you've witnessed on the campus.
Yeah.
I think it's cool just to kind of point out that the process that you've gone through of, seeking wise counsel, this being a community effort, just really honoring that what the scriptures say about, nothing's given to private interpretation. So this isn't just
Right.
coming, out of
Not just coming from, no.
just this isn't freestyling. You're
No,
you're
no,
you're
thank
really
you.
going through the whole, and it's a detailed process. And just to kind of commend your superintendent for asking the right questions, like, hey, we need a
Yeah.
doctrinal position on this to make sure that we're rooted in
Mhm.
God's word. I love the fact that you are honoring the family, and bringing the family into this and making sure that they sign off on this, engaging the church as well. So with all, and by the way, I love the win time. I'm
Yeah.
loving all the alliteration and all the easy, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to that.
Yeah.
And
Our team is incredible. I'll tell you what, we do a lot of gleaning. Yeah, there are people doing a lot of great things all over the country, and we're just like picking and choosing, and we're trying it out, and if it works, it's going to stick, and if it doesn't, we'll just move on. But
very,
yeah,
very, very
we got a great
wise.
team over here.
Yeah, also, but yeah, I think there's, with all that you're doing, you're we like to say we're creating the conditions for the spirit to do what the spirit does. We don't want to grieve or quench the spirit. So talk about what you're witnessing the Lord do through these efforts.
Yeah. So we've seen 88 students and one teacher get baptized over the last 3 school years. I think it's been 5. So that first year we did one baptism service right after Easter, and then the last 2 school years we did one in October and one right after Easter. And so we're on the same campus as Vancouver Church. That was the church that birthed Kingsway, uh, over 50 years ago. And so we really try to piggyback off of the days that they do baptism, because we utilize their sanctuary for our chapel service. So when they set the sanctuary up for baptisms, that's typically when we will plan. And they do it a little more frequently than we do, but that's typically when we'll plan our baptism. So it's not so much set up and tear down, right? So once in October and once in April or end of March, whenever Easter falls are the 2 dates that we do it. And then, so 5 baptism services in the last 3 years, 88 students. We did one service at a family's home before we had finalized any of this stuff for the school. We had like 19 kids that wanted to get baptized, and we had a family say, well, we have a pool. We could host this, run it through, admin was like, okay, it's a neutral off campus, go for it. And there was like 100 people that showed up to that
No
thing. Yeah, we
way.
had aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas, and it was like every principal showed up. It was like, yeah, we were having church for sure. And we were, yeah, it was just at somebody's house, on a weekend during the beginning of the school year. So, so that's been, the middle school and high school experience. And then to see, kids come out of the water and their friends are waiting for them on the other side of the tank, and they just like run into their arms with towels and they're soaking wet and the kids don't care. There's just like so much momentum of community. But what's even cooler is we've had a few different testimonies where a parent has actually emailed in of an elementary student. So we call it a K to 12 chapel. So all the elementary is there. We only baptize middle school and high school. That was one of the things that we decided was appropriate, to kind of put some boundaries around our baptism services. So only middle school and high school students get baptized at Kingsway, but the elementary is involved from witnessing that event. And so we've actually had one in particular. A mom emailed in. Her son was in 4th grade, and she said, "I just wanted to thank you guys for today. My son came home after the baptism chapel, and he had so many questions about it. And we've never had a conversation like that with our son before. And right before, as we're in bed, I'm saying goodnight, and he's like, 'Mom, I want to receive Jesus. Can you pray with me to receive Jesus?' And so this mom was like, 'Thank you for even giving us that opportunity, to have that conversation.' And so there have been a couple of combos like that, and emails in, but that's just a little bit of uh, the cool fruit, and even unexpected. You don't really expect an elementary student to come to witness something like that and then go home and ask those big questions, but it's happening. And we've got there's another just one more story. There's a family with two young girls. They're first and third grade, and the family was talking to one of our other, administrators saying, "Hey, what church do you guys go to? Like our girls are in the bathtub, and they're baptizing each other, and they're they're like doing what they saw all everyone do at school, and we need to buy a Bible. Like we don't own a Bible, and so what do we even do? Like our girls are wanting to read the Bible before they go to bed. We don't own one. They want to go to church. Where do we go? So there's just really incredible conversations happening, not just with our students that are actually getting baptized, but even our younger students. It's a pretty cool testimony to God's faithfulness and what's happening at Kingsway.
And again, this continues to highlight for me just the when Christian schools, I think, understand their role within the larger, uh, as Christ continues to manifest and advance his
Yeah,
kingdom. When Christian schools understand the role, again, not replacing the home, not replacing the church, but man, we cast such a wide net, and we
Mhm.
have a captive audience. And when we honor God and honor God's design for his creation, for us to live that life in abundance, and Christian educators really say, "Hey, man, God's placed me here, just like you have done.
Yeah.
Let me do what I can to say to the entire world that Jesus Christ is our only Savior
Mhm.
and He's the Lord of the universe." We
Yeah,
get amazing stories
for
like
sure.
this of people coming into the fellowship of the saints, and it's amazing
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's actually would be one of my encouragements to everyone listening. If you're struggling about like what is your purpose, or are you making any impact? I just would echo like what Nehemiah said in Nehemiah 6. He's like, I'm doing a great work. I can't come down. And
Oof.
like you have to believe that you're doing a great work, and that when sin comes knocking, or when that the like discouraging thoughts come knocking, or any of that stuff that wants to discredit anything you're doing, uh, man, I just say you're doing a great work. You can't come down. Just say that, because you are doing a great work, regardless of how big your school is or how small it is. Like these kids need what you have.
Man, that's a great word. And Paris, before I let you go, man, I really appreciate what God is doing in your life, and just
Yeah.
just for our,
Thanks,
our
Jerry.
listeners as well. Hey, please feel free to reach out to Paris. I know you'd be happy to share more about the assessment tool that they're
Mhm.
using over at Kingsway, and just discuss all of the amazing acronyms that they have over at Kingsway, and
Yeah.
how they're
It's
pulling
catchy.
from it.
Catchy.
Is catchy stuff. Hey,
Yeah.
and we said at the top of the podcast, that we're really trying to build this worldwide network of
Yeah.
spiritual formation, leaders and ambassadors. Man, any words of encouragement to the folks to join the network?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I said it at the top too. It's really easy to feel like you're on an island, or you're the only one. You're not necessarily a teacher all the time. You don't have a class that you got to teach every single day or every single week. And here you are at chapel. It could feel really alone and isolating. So if you do ever feel that way, I mean, Doug, Jerry, they do a great job with this network. And I joined the call last week. First, just joined the network, and it was just amazing to see that many people all sharing the same struggles, all having the same type of role, and the same heart that to reach the next generation for Jesus. So I would just say, yeah, if you ever feel alone or isolated, or like you're on an island, or what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. There are plenty of people who know the struggle and who want to help. And so that's why I joined the network, and that's why I want to continue to be a part of the network, because I've been there, and now I'm not there anymore, because there's all these people who are doing this thing, and I just want to be a part of what God's doing in the nation, in the world.
All right, Paris, thank you so
Yeah,
much. And again, please reach out to Paris. His contact information will be in the description. And if you want to get connected with the network, so as I said at the top of the podcast, go to ACSI/convene, ACSI/convene. And at our next quarterly meeting, November 18th, we're going to have Tim Van Solen from Case, Dordt University, to help talk more about this wonderful topic of assessment. Paris, thank you so much.
Awesome. You bet, Jerry. Thank you. Join the network. It's worth it.
Grafted Together is a presentation of the Association of Christian Schools International. Learn more about biblical worldview and spiritual formation at acsi.org/graftedtogether.